Seascapes often depict lots of movement, but at some point the waves get calm to create some of the most beautiful paintings. Ahoy mateys! Welcome back to Always Wandering Art. Today we're painting this beautiful little seascape. So get your sea legs on. Let's get ready to walk the plank, paint. I'll be using Arches rough paper. And here are our colors and brushes. Let's start out by wetting the paper with a 1.5 inch flat brush. Now working wet on wet, let's get a little ultramarine blue in there for the sky. I've also mixed in a little Payne's gray. Whoops, did not mean to add that brownish streak, but that could easily be blotted out with paper towel. And now some raw sienna as we start to blend the whole thing together. I'm trying to work fairly quickly so that the paper doesn't dry out to allow me to blend these colors. Now, even though I'm working with a larger brush to cover a larger area, I'm still being careful not to brush over our drawing that we've made. Okay, time to paint in a little strip of land in the distance. And I'm not adding in really any detail at all because it's way in the back. Same thing on the other side, painting in the mountain in the back there, being careful not to brush over the drawing. As an alternative, masking fluid also works to prevent paint from running into areas where you don't want it. And now painting in the water, you really want to just try to mimic what's up above in the sky. Next we'll paint in the grass using raw sienna as well as a little burnt sienna. And I'm using the 1.5 inch flat brush again because again I need to cover a larger area. And I don't want to fiddle around with a small brush because otherwise it'll take forever. So using a larger brush will allow us to cover more area in less time, and it'll allow for smoother strokes as well. And I should mention that the size of the paper here is 14 inches by 20 inches. So as I go through and paint the grasses, I'm really trying to vary the shapes of the grass. I don't want all the grasses to look the same, otherwise it'll look kind of boring. So as you can see, some grasses are sticking out a little further than others. Some are shorter, some are longer. It just adds more interest to the painting. And also, I'm not trying to paint every blade of grass. I'm just kind of using broad brush strokes and painting in impressions of grasses here and there, just to have the viewer sort of create the image of grasses in their minds. And a little burnt umber here on the little piece of land that's jutting out here. Sometimes it makes sense to leave a thin line between where the piece of land juts out and the reflection to suggest to the viewer that the two aren't blending together and that they're two distinct things. Alright, same idea here. A little thin line separating the reflection from the land. And now here I'm using what's called negative painting to really make the light grasses stand out just by painting in the opposite. I'm painting in the darker color, the reflection right into the lighter color grasses. And doing this, sort of painting them upside down, will create the image that the lighter grass is sticking out. Now switching to a smaller brush, I'm working in the finer details, being careful not to brush over the little boat down below or the house, and just kind of rendering the smaller detail items like the little boats and house. And as I mentioned before, you could use masking fluid to protect the little details like the boat and the house. But if you've got enough control over the brush, you really don't have to do that. So as I paint in the reflections, I'm just really trying to mirror whatever's up above, and darkening around the lighter objects like the boat really makes it stand out. Don't be afraid to go into whatever's already there with more color and just diffuse it until it looks right. Now, the reflection I'm painting back there looks a bit too dark right now, but it's always going to dry much lighter. It's always good to frame a painting with some sort of vertical if you can. So I'm going to add a couple of trees here on the left. And now the reflection of the little mountain in the back. Truth be told, I was trying to make this a moonlight painting, but since the sky turned out a little lighter than I'd like, I'm going to make this a sunrise painting. And that circular object there in the sky could just be the sun coming up early in the morning. While it is a pretty scary thing to do, it is possible to go back into the sky and change it a little bit without overbrushing. The task here is to move quickly without spending too much time in one spot. This way you'll avoid making the sky too blotchy. At this point of the painting, I'm trying to push the values now. So I'm just darkening areas where I believe they need to be darkened to really make the painting a little more three-dimensional. To create a glow effect, I'm leaving the middle of the water be the lightest part so I can create the impression that the light is hitting the water. Time to start painting in some of the details, like the little crab shack in the back there. Later on, I'm going to go back in and darken the right side, which will be the shadow side. Same goes for the little boats. Left side is going to be the light side, and the right side is going to be the shadow side. Now here I made the supports for the sails a little too dark, so I went back in and you could always fix your mistakes by blotting them out with a nice paper towel. Nice little reflection here. What's up above has to be down below. Okay, a shadow on the right side, and right underneath the eave, there's usually a shadow as well. At this stage of the painting, everything's pretty much laid out. It's just really going back and fine-tuning some details and just pushing the values. It's hard to know when to stop. This may not really be necessary because it's all the way in the back, but I think if we darken the space around the little crab shack, it'll really make it stand out even more. It's really up to you how far you want to push the values before you decide to sign the painting and call it done. And the last few finishing touches here on the pier, and I think we're about to call this painting done. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this painting, and let me know what you think.